There's a moment, maybe you felt it too, when the world feels like it's crumbling beneath your feet. A quiet evening turns into a restless night. A job you thought was secure, gone. A relationship you swore would last forever dissolves like mist at dawn. And you stand there in the middle of it all, still breathing but uncertain, still moving but directionless. It's as if the very ground beneath you is trembling. And you wonder, how did it all come to this? Why does life feel so unstable, so unpredictable, so fragile? We live in an age where certainty has become a luxury. The news bleeds anxiety. The future feels like a storm cloud waiting to burst. Yet somewhere in the heart of ancient wisdom, there lies a way to stand steady, even as the winds howl. Centuries ago, a man named Siddhartha walked away from a life of luxury, leaving behind his palace, his titles, his comforts. Not because he despised them, but because he saw something deeper. On the streets of ancient India, he encountered an old man, a sick man, a corpse, and a wandering monk. In that moment, the illusion shattered. He saw life's unavoidable truths, that everything changes, everything ages, and nothing stays the same. And yet, while the world spun in endless cycles of gain and loss, joy and sorrow, he discovered something unshaken. A ground that didn't tremble. I want you to imagine this, a solitary figure in the misty dawn, walking slowly through the courtyard of a centuries-old temple. The world around him is restless, but his steps are steady, his breath unhurried, his gaze calm. Somewhere deep within, there's a quiet center, a place untouched by the world's chaos. That place exists in you too. You just forgot how to find it. See, we've been taught since we were young to chase after certainty, to plan, to predict, to protect. We build routines like walls, hoping to shield ourselves from the storms we know are coming. But the storm doesn't ask for permission. It arrives when it wants. And no matter how tightly we cling to what we think is safe, money, status, approval, even health, life will, sooner or later, pry our fingers loose. The tragedy isn't in the loss itself, but in our refusal to accept it. We get lost because we look for stability in things that were never meant to last. And when those things slip away, as they inevitably will, we feel like we're falling. But what if the problem isn't the falling? What if it's the way we fight it? What if the only way to truly stand firm is to stop clinging? The wisdom of the ancients whispers to us even now, the world is change, the ground will tremble, the storm will come. But there is a place within you, beyond the reach of fear and uncertainty. And maybe, just maybe, you've felt it before, in those rare moments when you weren't trying to control everything, when you let go of needing to know what happens next, when you were simply here, alive, present, unburdened. This isn't about escaping the world, it's about waking up to it, to see its beauty in the fleeting, its kindness in the fragile, its wisdom in the uncertain. Because in the end, it's not the ground we stand on that gives us peace. It's the heart we carry while standing there. So if you've ever felt lost, disoriented, or afraid, you're not alone. Every one of us walks this trembling earth together. But there's a way to walk it differently. Not by hardening yourself against the storms, but by understanding the nature of the storm itself. And in that understanding, a deeper, quieter strength is born. In the stillness of early dawn, when the world is neither night nor day, there lies a space where truth reveals itself. And it begins with seeing that everything you hold onto, everything you fear to lose, was never meant to stay. But something else, something timeless, is waiting just beneath the surface. If you've ever watched a candle burn down to its final flicker, you've witnessed it. If you've ever seen the seasons trade places, the green of spring surrender to autumn's fire, you've felt it. Change, relentless, unapologetic, silent and unstoppable. And yet, for some reason, we live our lives pretending it isn't so. We hold onto people as if they'll never leave. We grasp at possessions as if they'll never fade. We cling to identities, titles, roles, as though time won't quietly peel them away. But no matter how tightly our fingers close, everything slips through. The Buddha long ago called this truth anicca, impermanence, not as a curse but as a simple, undeniable fact. Nothing remains as it is. No sunrise ever repeats itself. No breath you take now will be the same as the one you took before. And yet, here's where the suffering begins. We resist. We fight the truth of impermanence at every turn. We mourn the passing of youth, the withering of beauty, the endings we never asked for. We try to freeze moments in photographs, seal memories in stories, stretch pleasure a little longer. But the current pulls forward, indifferent to our struggle. Think of a leaf drifting down a stream. It doesn't fight the water, it rides it. And in doing so, it finds a kind of peace, not by halting the current, but by moving with it. You and I, we're not so different. What makes life heavy isn't that things change. It's the war we wage against that change. The endless attempt to control what was never ours to hold. We grieve not just the loss itself, but the illusion we built around it. The belief that love wouldn't change, that bodies wouldn't age, that the world would remain the way we left it yesterday. But what if we stopped resisting? What if, instead of fearing impermanence, we began to understand its strange, quiet beauty? Because within this constant flux, life becomes breathtakingly precious. Moments matter more when you know they won't last. A conversation with an old friend, the warmth of sun on your skin after a cold winter, the simple, unrepeatable sound of your child's laughter. These things glow brighter not because they endure forever, but because they don't. And this is the medicine for our restless hearts. The Buddha taught that when we truly see impermanence, suffering loosens its grip. Not because the storms stop coming, but because we stop expecting them to stay away. In accepting that everything rises and falls, appears and fades, we find a peculiar kind of freedom. The freedom to love without clinging, to grieve without drowning, to live without fear. I remember once sitting with an old monk in a mountainside monastery. The air was thin, the pines swayed like ancient dancers, and he said to me, "Everything is borrowed, even this breath, especially this breath," and he smiled. Not with sadness, but with understanding. To him, impermanence wasn't a source of sorrow. It was the very thing that made this life extraordinary. Because if nothing lasts, then every moment you live, every word you speak, every kindness you offer matters. And maybe that's the truth we've been running from all along. Not the fear that life will change, but the deeper fear that we've wasted too much time pretending it wouldn't. So the invitation now is simple. Look around you. At the face of someone you love. At the flicker of dusk settling outside your window. At your own reflection, a little older than yesterday. And instead of mourning what won't last, honor it. Because all of this is life's true nature. Ever shifting, ever fading, ever beautiful. And in learning to move with its currents rather than against them, we rediscover something ancient and unshakable within ourselves. There's a peculiar thing about the human mind. It's always somewhere else. While the body sits in a chair, the mind drifts to tomorrow's worries, yesterday's regrets, or fantasies of a life unlived. It races ahead to what might happen or clings to what should have been. Rarely does it rest here. Now, this moment, and that more than anything else is why we feel lost. Not because life is uncertain, not because the world keeps changing, but because we have no anchor, no place within ourselves to tether the restless mind when the winds rise. Imagine being in a small boat at sea. The sky darkens, waves begin to swell, the shoreline fades. Without an anchor, you'll be tossed endlessly, pulled by every wave, every gust. And yet drop a single weight into the depths, and you find your boat no longer drifts. It still rocks. Yes, storms still come, but you remain steady. The Buddha called this samatha, calm abiding, the art of grounding the mind when the world refuses to stand still. You see, while we cannot command the tides of life, we can choose how we meet them. And that choice begins inside. So how do we find our anchor? Sometimes it's as simple as a breath. Take one now. Feel the cool air enter your nostrils. Notice the subtle rise of your chest, the warmth of air leaving your body. In this small, humble act, you've already returned, not to yesterday, not to tomorrow, but to now. The breath is the oldest anchor there is. It was your first act when you entered this world, and it will be your last before you leave. It asks for nothing. It's always here. And in its steady rhythm, you can find sanctuary. But anchoring the mind isn't only about breath. It can be anything that draws you fully into the present. The feeling of your bare feet on grass, the warmth of tea against your lips, the sound of rain on an empty road, the sensation of your heartbeat after a long run. Each moment, no matter how ordinary, holds the potential to become sacred if you notice it. The practice is not to escape the storm, but to remember your anchor while it rages, because the waves will come. Phone calls that shatter your plans, words that cut deeper than they should, the sudden loss of something you weren't ready to let go of. But with an anchor, you learn to steady yourself. You begin to see the waves not as enemies, but as part of the ocean you sail. There's a Zen saying I love: you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And surfing in this case begins by remembering the still point within you, the place untouched by external winds. For some, it's meditation. For others, prayer, a walk through ancient forests, or the quiet hum of a candle-lit room. Whatever it is, find it, and return to it often. Because when you forget your anchor, life feels like chaos. But when you remember it, even amidst uncertainty, there's a strange kind of peace. Not the peace of everything going your way, but the peace of knowing you can stay grounded no matter what comes. And this, perhaps, is what we've been chasing all along. Not a life without storms, but a heart steady enough to withstand them. As you listen now, notice the sensations in your own body, the weight of your seat beneath you, the air on your skin, the steady pulse at your wrist. This is your anchor. It was never far away, and it never will be. Because the truth is, life doesn't promise certainty. It promises only this moment. And if you can be fully here, even for a breath, you've already won something priceless. Now, as we move forward, there's something deeper we need to understand. Not just how to ground ourselves, but why we keep running from the unknown in the first place. What is it we truly fear when life unravels? And what ancient wisdom can show us how to face that fear without flinching? There's a place, somewhere within each of us, where the waters are still. Beneath the noise of restless thoughts, beneath the ripples of emotion, beneath the storms of fear and desire, there lies a clear, quiet pool, a place untouched, a place undisturbed. But most of us have forgotten how to find it. We live on the surface, chasing the next thing, reacting to every sound, every message, every flicker of approval or rejection. And in doing so, we stir the waters of the mind until we can no longer see our own reflection. The ancient masters knew this. They called it sati, mindfulness, not a trendy habit, not a productivity hack, but a way of seeing. A way of being so completely present that even ordinary moments become sacred. When you practice mindfulness, you're not trying to escape the world. You're not running from your problems. You're learning to see clearly. And when you truly see, something incredible happens. The storm calms, the surface stills, and the truth beneath is revealed. Let's begin here in this very breath. Right now, feel it. The coolness of air entering, the slight warmth as it leaves. Notice the pauses in between. This isn't a technique to get anywhere. It's a practice of arrival. When your mind wanders, and it will, notice where it goes. Gently, without judgment, invite it back. To this breath, to this moment. Like leading a child safely home. Because the mind is like a monkey, leaping from branch to branch, craving what's next. Mindfulness teaches us to watch the monkey without following it, to observe without clinging, without aversion, without needing to control. In daily life, mindfulness isn't confined to a meditation cushion. It lives in the way you sip your morning tea, in the way you listen to a friend without interrupting, in how you notice sunlight filtering through leaves on a tired afternoon. It's in the breath before you speak, the pause before you react, the awareness that arises when you realize you don't have to be at war with this moment. And the more you practice, the more you'll notice something strange. The world slows down. Not because it actually moves slower, but because your mind stops sprinting ahead. Suddenly, washing dishes isn't a chore. It's the feel of warm water, the gleam of a clean surface, the simple gratitude of having food to eat. The traffic jam isn't a punishment. It's a chance to breathe, to notice the sky, to remember that being alive is a miracle we forget far too often. Mindfulness asks us to stop sleepwalking through our lives, to notice the color of the sky before it changes, to hear the last notes of a song before it fades, to truly look into the eyes of someone you love, not through the haze of distraction, but fully, as if for the first and last time. Because one day it will be. And when you live like this, awake, aware, tenderly tuned to each fleeting moment, something profound shifts. You stop needing the world to be perfect to feel peace. You realize that even amid difficulty, even as the ground beneath you trembles, there's a still water inside you, a place you can return to, a sanctuary untouched by circumstance. Buddhist masters often compare the mind to a glass of muddy water. If you keep shaking it, the dirt swirls and clouds your vision. But if you let it settle slowly, the mud falls to the bottom and clarity returns. That is mindfulness. The art of letting the mud settle, of resting, watching, and allowing life to reveal itself on its own terms, not forcing, not fleeing, simply being here. And so, in the next step of our journey, we'll go deeper. Now that we know how to ground ourselves, now that we've begun to steady the waters, what do we do when storms still come? Because even with mindfulness, life won't stop throwing us curveballs. Loss, fear, anger, desire, they'll visit. And when they do, how do we meet them without being pulled under? There is a way, not through resistance, but through presence, and together we'll explore it. It's strange, isn't it? We spend our entire lives chasing certainty, chasing answers, trying to predict the next moment, the next outcome, the next move. And yet, life has never promised us certainty. From the very first breath we take to the last one we release, we're living in a world that shifts beneath our feet. Everything we love will eventually leave or change. Every plan will eventually unravel. Every identity we cling to will one day dissolve. And yet we fight this. We resist it with everything we have. We build routines, construct carefully controlled futures, cling to labels and roles: mother, son, teacher, seeker, leader. We tell ourselves, if I can just control this one thing, maybe everything will be okay. But it never works, does it? Because deep down we know the truth. The unknown is always waiting, and it terrifies us. Fear of the unknown isn't weakness. It's human. It's the primal reflex that kept our ancestors alive when they faced a dark, silent forest, uncertain of what waited in the shadows. But in our world today, most of those shadows are in our minds. We fear the unknown future of our health, the unknown fate of a relationship, the uncertainty of who we'll be when all the things we cling to fall away. And yet here's the secret the ancient teachers left for us. It's in the unknown that we find our freedom. You see, when you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, when you stop bracing for what might happen next, something inside you softens. A tension you didn't realize you were carrying in your shoulders, in your chest, in your heart. It eases. The unknown is no longer a threat. It's a teacher. And if you can meet it just as it is, without resistance, without clinging, without needing it to explain itself, you'll discover a strange, liberating peace. Because life was never meant to be predictable. It was meant to be lived. Think of the moments in your life when you felt most alive. Were they the ones you planned, scheduled, controlled down to the second? Or were they the moments you didn't see coming? A sudden conversation that changed everything. A sunrise you hadn't planned to witness. A loss that shattered you, and somehow, years later, revealed a deeper strength you never knew you had. The unknown brings pain, yes, but it also brings possibility. It's where all growth begins. It's the place where transformation lives. In Buddhist thought, there's a word, anicca, impermanence. Everything changes. Everything arises and passes away. And when you truly understand this, not as a concept but as a lived reality, You stop demanding that life conform to your expectations. You stop waiting for things to settle before you let yourself be happy. And in that moment, when you can stand in the center of uncertainty, unguarded, you touch something rare. Not fear, not control, but freedom. The freedom of a heart unburdened by needing to know. The freedom of a mind at peace with not having every answer. You realize at last that certainty was never your refuge. Presence was, because here, in this moment, right now, you are safe. Not because you know what will happen tomorrow, but because you are fully alive today. And that is all life has ever asked of you. So when fear arises, and it will, don't push it away. Turn toward it. Notice how it feels, where it lives in your body, the stories it tells you. And then ask yourself, what if this fear wasn't a warning? What if it was an invitation? An invitation to step into the mystery of your own becoming, to loosen your grip on who you think you must be, to let yourself be changed by what you don't yet understand. Because it's in those moments, in the places you never meant to go, that life whispers its deepest truths. And so as we continue, you may wonder, if we can accept the unknown, if we can soften into uncertainty, what happens to our suffering? Is there a way to meet our pain without drowning in it? The ancient path says yes, but not by avoiding it, not by numbing it, by seeing it, by holding it, and paradoxically by letting it be. In our next step together, we'll sit with this. We'll explore the heart of suffering not as an enemy but as a doorway, because the pain you fear might be the exact thing that wakes you up. There's something about uncertainty that makes us retreat inward. When life feels unstable, when the ground trembles beneath our feet, instinct tells us to pull away, to protect what we can, to build walls around our hearts, to armor ourselves against disappointment, against loss, against the unpredictable tides of a world we can't control. And yet, when we do this, we forget something essential, something the old masters whispered for centuries. The very thing we fear losing is often the thing that will save us. You see, the antidote to uncertainty is not control, it's connection. Not clinging, but compassion. Because in a world that constantly shifts, where every person you pass is carrying their own invisible ache, the only true compass you'll ever need is the steady pulse of an open heart. Compassion. But what is compassion really? It isn't pity. It isn't fixing someone's pain. It isn't grand gestures or poetic words scribbled on a page. It's this, the quiet, unshaken willingness to sit beside another's suffering, to be present without needing to change it, to acknowledge, I see you, I feel this too. Because the truth is, uncertainty isolates us only if we let it. Pain can harden us, but it can also soften us. Fear can close the heart, but it can also break it open. And in that openness, that raw, unfiltered tenderness, we find each other. We remember that we are not alone, that every person we've ever met, every stranger on a street corner, every face in a crowded room carries the same silent questions. Will everything be okay? Am I enough? Will I be loved when I fall apart? And when you realize this, truly feel it, not as a thought but as a deep, bodily knowing, something inside you shifts. The walls you built no longer make sense, because how can you fear the unknown when you're no longer walking through it alone? In Buddhist teaching, compassion isn't just a virtue, it's a survival skill, a way to navigate impermanence without losing yourself. The Buddha spoke of K-A-R-U letter 1E47 macron, a boundless, active compassion that arises not because we should care, but because we can't help it. It's the mother who reaches for her crying child, the stranger who catches your eye in a moment of grief and says nothing, but you feel their presence like a lifeline, the friend who answers your call at 2 a.m. when you have no words left. This is the compass you carry, and it works both ways, because while the world will shake you, it will also offer you others to hold, not to save them, not to solve them, but to remind them that even in the darkest uncertainty, a single act of kindness can steady the soul. And here's a secret: compassion isn't weakness, it isn't naivety, it's fierce. It takes courage to open your heart when life has broken it, to stay soft when the world tells you to harden. It takes strength to forgive, to see the suffering behind another's anger, to choose love in a moment where fear would be easier. But every time you do, every time you reach out instead of retreat, you plant a seed. And in this trembling, uncertain world, those seeds matter more than you know. They're what hold the fabric of life together. So the next time uncertainty comes, when you feel unmoored, lost in a sea of what-ifs, don't search for the perfect answer. Reach for another hand. Look for the ache in someone else's eyes. Let your own wounds be a bridge, not a barrier. Because while none of us can predict what comes next, we can choose how we move through it. And maybe, just maybe, we can move through it together. As we prepare to close this path we've walked, there's one final truth waiting. A thread that ties all of this, the impermanence, the uncertainty, the fear, the compassion, into a single quiet teaching. It's not about escaping life's storms. It's about learning to be grounded in the middle of them, to live lightly, to let go, not as a loss but as a freedom. And so we arrive at our final step, a closing reflection, a return home. Let's meet it together. And so we arrive, not at the end of the road, but at the beginning of a new way of seeing, a quiet understanding. After all the tremors, the shifting ground, the fears, and the searching, what remains? It's not certainty, not control, not answers written in stone, but something softer, more enduring, a peace not dependent on the weather of your days, but on the depth of your presence. A heart unshaken, not because life stops trembling, but because you no longer demand that it should. You see, we've been taught to believe that peace is found in perfect conditions, in a still pond with no ripples, in a life without storms, in a path without detours. But the old teachings knew better. The Buddha never promised a world without suffering. He promised a way to meet it, a way to hold joy and sorrow in the same palm, to feel the grief and the beauty together, to lose, to love, to let go, and remain steady. This is what it means to live with an unshaken heart, not because you are numb, not because you no longer care, but because you have stopped running. You've stepped off the spinning wheel of craving and aversion. You've made peace with not knowing. And in that stillness, you've discovered something the world can never take, yourself. An open, unguarded, fully alive self, not a perfected being, not an unbreakable one, but a soul rooted in compassion, anchored by mindfulness, freed by acceptance, guided by wisdom, a heart that no longer trembles when the earth shakes, because it knows everything is impermanent, and yet every moment is precious, every breath a chance to begin again. So what now? You live. But not the frantic, grasping life you once chased. You live lightly. You carry what matters. You let the rest fall away. You forgive more. You love deeper. You listen better. You pause before reacting. You speak with kindness, even when your voice trembles. You reach for another hand when yours feels empty. You walk through the uncertainty, not above it, not around it, but within it, as one who knows that storms will come. And peace is not the absence of storms, but the calm you carry inside them. And in the end, that's all any of us can do, to greet each sunrise with an open heart, to meet each loss with gentle hands, to speak the truth but always with love, to never let the world harden what was meant to remain tender. This is the practice, not a destination, a way of being, a way of living with an unshaken heart. Thank you for walking this path with me. May you find your anchor. May you open your heart. May you live with peace even when the world forgets how. And when it does, remember this: you were never walking alone.